So as you stand back and start to look at something, when you're developing your display, color and interest, height, it's all very important. And one of the big things we've lost in this room, in this display, is the fall season. We don't see a lot of deciduous trees. We don't see a lot of color and change from exhibit to exhibit. It's all very much the same. The color, that's a dark green, this is a dark green, this is a little lighter green, a little bit of a change. But to have had something else in between would be so much nicer.
This is color interest.
So it's color interest. And also height. So one of the things that has happened, because we don't have the color change in here, at least the height change has changed. You've got, a little low here and it rolls on up, and you do have some little interest, hinoki, a little different from the broader leaf with the tropicals, and then the smaller leaf in the juniper. So that has helped a lot. And without that, when you walk into a room, if they're all the same size, you're just going to walk by them. You're not even going to see them, after a while. They're all the same height, they're all the same color green, and they're going to go away. And the one way of creating interest is also with the little accent plant. And there's only one or two in here that really add a spark for this season of color. So I would like to have seen more color. So as you look at things, the color, the texture, all of these things are really important. The refinement that's in here, the bigger leaf would be nice. So how else can you make this look better? What else would have added another dimension, and that would be a scroll. And it doesn't have to be on every plant. And it doesn't have to be from Japan. And it doesn't have to hang this way, vertically. It can be horizontal, not a scroll, but a little print. A very delightful, something simple, something you could do yourself if you wanted to. Just a hint of a season, a hint of a location, and that could bring this together, because now you've got this great, wonderful field behind it with nothing showing. So on this, as heavy as this tree is, if you had a longer scroll or a wide picture coming out here, it would change this. It would give it another space over here and add to it. But in a way, even though it adds to the fullness, the visual fullness, it changes when you put something else up next to it. It'll draw it out. So something in this area, what would be good? Twisted, you think of up in the mountains, you've got a little crabapple down here, but maybe this wouldn't look bad next to a waterfall. So if you had just a slight little hint of a waterfall, and in winter, depending on where you live, is the waterfall full and flowing? Here in California, it would be barely dribbling. You just have more the rocks that would show, or some of the stones. You wouldn't see the water. If you live in an area where it's really raining heavy now and collecting a lot of water, you'd see this volume, this steam coming out and pummeling the area. So knowing where you live and what you're trying to show helps. It could be a little bird in some dead grasses, or a nest that has kind of fallen apart. Very simple things. A bird's nest, the end of the season, would be very pretty as a little accent point. It doesn't have to be a plant. Taking on the other side as we go around, you're going to see there's a little swan tucked up with the stones. That can be used. There is nothing wrong with putting a figure of some sort around that in that display. Yes.
But not black and white.
Color. Black and white is fine.
It's fine.
It has to give the hint of color. In other words, it could be a black and white picture with a persimmon on it. Everybody knows the color of the persimmon. You don't have to see the orange. You would just see that shape.
Okay.
Okay. The question is, very good question. With all this vivid green foliage, what about the green table covers? It adds to it. It does actually add to that volume of green. So how could you change that? A simple one would be just a slight change of material color just right at the front edge. It could be a simple, like bender board laid down end to end. It could be a ribbon, it could be something else, but or a tatami mat on top.
Yeah.
You know, you don't. Generally speaking, tatami mats, especially when they're big, they're okay. When they're small, a little reed thing or a little bamboo thing under here, that's more for, so you wouldn't want that, you know, the tatami mat would be all right, but don't go with some of those softer reed things or little bamboo pieces. That would take away from it too much. But that would dress it up more. It is a hard color because you already have it. That's why in Japan a lot of times you see reds, blues, other colors. It doesn't fight it as much. But, you know, green down here with something else on top would have been an easier thing to deal with. But the green is perfect if we had more yellows and oranges and reds and different colors. How do you get things to look like you're going into fall, into the color? You can force things into color sometimes when you know there's a show coming. You pull it back, you get it as cold as you can get it, you get it dark, you just do everything to make it feel that the light value is going down and we're going into winter. Don't let it hit the heat, don't put it in full sun. All those things are going to play havoc with it. If you're trying to do color, if you have a deciduous piece of material, if it stays in full sun during the summer, it will go into color quicker than if it's under shade cloth. If it's under shade cloth for a long time, it's just existing in less sun, and it doesn't know when the light value goes down. So understanding some of these little things helps out. So let's come to this backside and view it this way.
And take them out at night.
The main thing is the light value. The heat is something, but it's really the light, the amount of light. So we've taken them in Japan, we tarp them over. You know, keep them in the backyard where no light. It's light more than the cold. It's the light too that makes a difference. So as we look at this side, this has a little more interest to it. You've got the beautiful grass. You've got a very lightly foliage tree here in the middle that looks like it's lost a lot of its leaves. It's not in any color, but sometimes what you can do is to hint at the fall bit is, you know, just one little one laying on the floor, but usually if it's a color, it's better. Not a dozen, not 5 dozen, just a little bit, or up on the pot might be a better situation. But something just to give that essence of, there we go, we got a little color. Pull everything else off and leave this one on. So, but we've got color here. We've got a beautiful blue pot. I like that arrangement very much. It's delightful. We have a tree here that if it stayed in this room for another few days, we might be getting color. And then over here, just kind of a lacking of it, but of color. But that setup now, let's go another step when you're setting up. Where do you place trees within the setup? Here we have a tree that's coming into the fold. A semi-cascade or cascade at the end is excellent. We've got a nice tall one here. That's good for the center. A group planting, something that's big and broad, can sit in the middle sections. This one's not bad. It's upright. It stops that flow because here you have a flow and here you have a flow and then it stops. And how does this one do down at this end? It's okay. It leans in this way. A little stronger flow might have been better, but it's not bad. When you have individual tokonoma setups where they really look like a separate display, it's not as difficult as it is when that backdrop is solid and there's no change. Then you really want to change the direction of the trees and have something soft and a nice flow going through. Then you also want, still within, these are fine because these act to stop the eye from place to place. If you don't have that at your show or your setup at home, you want to just put a little piece of bamboo through the middle, something simple that will stop your eye. You could